Hello, my name is Natalie, and I'm 38 years old. The past few months have been a period of great upheaval, requiring me to rediscover and reorient many aspects of my life. A lot of this turmoil stemmed from my marriage to Willie, but thankfully, someone compassionate stepped in to help me through it. Let me tell you about the key people in my journey. First, there's my sister, Lori. She's 5 years younger than me and undeniably stunning. Growing up, we often butted heads, mainly because I was the bookish, introverted type, and she was the popular, outgoing social butterfly. Her teasing always seemed to stem from some underlying tension or jealousy, though our mother tried to mediate between us. As we got older, we naturally drifted apart, especially after I went off to college. When Lori reached her late teens, we began to reconnect, though our relationship remained somewhat distant. Over time, we found a way to be more civil with one another, but we never became particularly close. I've come to accept this, knowing that it's as good as it's likely to get. As for my ex-husband, Willie, we met at work and quickly became inseparable. After 4 years of dating, we decided to get married and bought our first home together. Since I was the higher earner, the mortgage and deed were in my name. A few years into our marriage, Willie brought up the idea of starting a family. He approached it with care, knowing that I had my hesitations. "Honey, I've been thinking," Willie said one evening. "We've been together for a while now, and maybe it's time we considered having a family." I knew this conversation would come up. I replied, "But you know my concerns." He nodded thoughtfully. "I get it. But think about it. We're stable now, and it could be amazing to see little versions of us running around." I hesitated. Yes, but having kids is a huge responsibility. It's not something to take lightly. Willie smiled reassuringly. "And who's more responsible than us?" Looking back, I can see how I gave in to Willie's persistence. Despite my reservations, we had our son first, followed by a daughter 4 years later. In the beginning, Willie was a supportive partner, but things soon took a turn. The balance shifted, and the weight of running the household and caring for the children suddenly fell squarely on my shoulders. After our first child was born, Willie's career took off with a promotion that left him earning more than I did. He suggested that I leave my job to focus on our family. I was reluctant, but the mounting pressure eventually wore me down. I agreed, and I transitioned into being a full-time mom, to stave off the isolation and keep some semblance of connection to the outside world. I began hosting dinner parties. These gatherings became my escape, something to look forward to. My mother, sister Lori, and my mother-in-law, Amanda, would often join, especially when Amanda was in town. This new chapter of my life had its comforts. I appreciated the extra time with my children and the visits from family members. My relationship with Willie seemed stable on the surface, even though a traumatic birthing experience with our second child had left deep emotional scars that subtly affected our connection. But just when I thought I had found some sense of equilibrium, an unsettling discovery shattered my fragile peace. One afternoon, while tidying up our bedroom, I stumbled upon a pair of women's underwear, definitely not mine. The sight of them made my heart drop, a mixture of shock and sadness flooding over me. Had I become insufficient for Willie? The timing felt particularly cruel. I was still recovering from the birth of our second child, less than a year ago, and seeing a therapist to work through my postpartum struggles. I was making slow but steady progress. But the discovery of these underwear felt like a massive setback. It stirred up an overwhelming mix of anger, confusion, and betrayal. I needed answers. I snapped a photo of the underwear and sent it to Willie, demanding an explanation. Then, feeling the desperate need to know more, I turned to his laptop and logged into his social media accounts. At first, I found nothing out of the ordinary. No unfamiliar names in his messages, nothing that could give me any clear answers. But as I kept digging through his digital life, my mind raced with suspicion. It felt almost like I was torturing myself. but I couldn't stop. Then, something caught my attention. Lori's name appeared in his chat logs more often than I expected. At first, I brushed it off. Why should it be odd that my sister and husband were in frequent contact? But an unsettling feeling gnawed at me. I couldn't ignore it any longer. What I found left me reeling. Their conversations weren't just casual check-ins, they were full of intimate photos, loving messages, and even plans for Willie to leave me. The gut-wrenching reality hit me like a ton of bricks. My sister, the person I had known my whole life, had betrayed me in the worst possible way. Overcome with a wave of nausea and disgust, I tried calling Willie, but he didn't pick up. My anger boiled over, and in my desperation, I called Lori. "Hey, what's up?" She answered casually, as if nothing was wrong. "Don't give me that, Lori. What the hell is going on?" I was trembling, my voice thick with disbelief and rage. She sounded confused. "I don't know what you mean. I found your panties in my bedroom. Have you been sleeping with Willie?" My words were sharp, each one heavier than the last. Her response was disturbingly indifferent. "Yeah, for a while now." My mind spun. "What? You've been sleeping with my husband? Seriously, Lori? You thought it was okay to do this? Did you think I was boring? Did being my sister mean nothing to you?" Her voice was eerily calm. "Look, I thought I was helping you out. I was keeping Willie busy so you could focus on the kids." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "You've got to be kidding me. That's your excuse? You helped destroy my family?" "I just wanted what's best for Willie," she said, her tone flat. "Okay, if I'm the best for him, then so be it." Her words were a slap in the face, a painful reminder of the deep betrayal. "You're disgusting," I snapped, unable to hold back my anger anymore. I hung up, my head spinning with the weight of it all. I never imagined my life would unravel like this. As I sat in the fallout of this discovery, the emotional shock felt almost paralyzing, but I had to push it aside. My youngest daughter was awake, crying. As I held her and comforted her, I felt numb, going through the motions without truly being present. I couldn't let my children see the devastation I was feeling. They didn't deserve that. So, I carried on, picking up my older child from school, preparing dinner, and answering their innocent questions about their dad's whereabouts with a made-up story about him working late. As the evening wore on, my anger slowly began to shift toward worry. It was getting close to 10 p.m., and there was still no sign of Willie. I called him repeatedly, but he didn't answer. Desperation crept in, and I tried reaching out to Lori, but she too was unreachable. Exhausted, overwhelmed, and unable to think clearly, I finally gave in to the physical and emotional toll. I fell asleep that night, holding on to a sliver of hope, praying that somehow, things would make sense again. The morning after felt like a cruel awakening. I wished it was all just a nightmare, but reality had a way of being harsher than any dream. Willie's absence was painfully evident. His belongings were missing from our bedroom, and a quick glance around the house confirmed my worst fears. He had left during the night, without a word. Without any attempt at closure. The realization hit me hard. Stunned and heartbroken, I knew I had to focus on my children. I went through the motions, getting them ready, dropping my eldest off at school, and taking my youngest to my mom's house. When I arrived, my mom immediately sensed something was off. My forced smile and distant demeanor were not lost on her. I tried to keep up the charade, but the weight of the situation was too much to ignore. The thought of raising 2 children on my own, without any idea of what would come next, loomed over me like a heavy cloud. Each time I tried to focus on something else, my mind kept circling back to the overwhelming reality of it all. Finally, my mom had had enough. "All right, enough of this silence. What's going on?" she asked, her tone both concerned and firm. I took a deep breath and, gathering all the courage I had left, I started from the beginning. I found out Willie's been cheating on me. Her shock was immediate. What? How do you know? I exhaled slowly, my voice shaky as I spoke the painful truth. I found another woman's underwear in our bedroom. The words hung in the air, and as I recounted the details, the flood of emotions I had been holding back came rushing to the surface. The realization of what I had just uncovered was still settling in. When I confronted Willie about the underwear, he didn't even respond. He just left. He left? What do you mean? My mom's voice cracked with disbelief. When I woke up this morning, all his stuff was gone. I didn't even get a chance to stop him. I fell asleep around midnight, and when I woke up, he had taken everything. Oh my God, sweetheart, I'm so sorry this happened, she said, her voice full of sorrow as she reached out to hold me. I could barely bring myself to speak again, but I knew I had to tell her the rest. It gets worse, I murmured, feeling a lump rise in my throat as I prepared to reveal the full extent of the betrayal. She looked at me, her concern deepening. What do you mean? Do you know who Willie cheated with? I paused for a moment, then corrected her softly. You mean, do you know who he cheated on me with? She nodded, her eyes filled with urgency. Yeah, I went through his things. I don't normally do that, but I had to know. So, who is it? She asked, her voice tight with anxiety. I hesitated for a moment before letting the words slip out, each one heavier than the last. It's Lori. Her face went pale. Excuse me, what? Are you serious? She gasped, her voice a mixture of disbelief and shock. Yes, my sister, I continued, my voice quivering. I called her to ask about it, and she was so nonchalant. She said they were in love, that she was the best for him, and she wasn't going anywhere. Oh my God, what has Lori done? My mom said, shaking her head, disbelief in her eyes. I don't even know how you're going to get through this. You have 2 kids to raise, and now you need to find a job too. Look, why don't we just get some rest? I'll try to process all of this, and I'll be here to help, okay? Her words, though filled with concern, brought me some comfort. It was hard to grasp everything at once, but the thought of having her by my side made it feel like I could manage it all. Yeah, okay. Thanks, Mom, I said, grateful for her support in the midst of the chaos. Saying all of this to her hadn't been as difficult as I had imagined. I ended up falling asleep while she looked after my youngest, taking a moment of peace amid the storm. When I woke up, I heard my baby crying, followed by my mom's raised voice. I rushed into the living room to find her on the phone, looking furious. She hung up and looked a little startled when she saw me. I'm sorry about the noise, she apologized quickly, though she didn't offer any details. I knew she'd been giving Lori a piece of her mind. For the next few days, Mom stayed with us. It was easier with just one person helping out instead of 3. Lori kept trying to reach out, but Mom asked me to block her number on her behalf. It was a relief to have someone who understood my hurt and stood by me through everything. Then, during a particularly lonely stretch, I learned from mutual friends that Willie and Lori had gotten married just one day after Willie left us. The news hit me like a punch to the gut, but I was strangely grateful to the friends who shared it. They were just as shocked as I was, but their support was unwavering. They immediately cut ties with both of them, and their loyalty meant the world to me. It was humiliating to know they had moved on so quickly, but part of me wasn't surprised. Given everything that had happened, what else could I expect? I told my mom, and her fury was evident. Normally, she was the calm, collected one, but seeing her so angry over what Lori had done made the betrayal all the more real. It was comforting, though, to feel her strength behind me. both emotionally and financially. She helped me secure job interviews and pushed me to regain my financial independence, something I hadn't been able to do while Willie was around, constantly holding me back. Life with the kids was manageable, though challenging. The hardest part was keeping up the facade when they asked about their dad. Every time they did, a fresh wave of sadness washed over me, but I kept it together, for their sake. A week after Willie's departure, I received a letter from him. By then, my heart had hardened enough that I didn't want anything to do with whatever he had to say. A week was too long for him to reach out, especially after walking away so suddenly. In a burst of anger and finality, I burned the letter, not even reading it. It felt like the only way to close that chapter for good. Yet, in quieter moments, a part of me wondered what he had written. Would his words have explained anything, or would they have just been more excuses? Sometimes, I regretted not reading the letter, but I knew that it didn't matter. Whatever he had to say wouldn't change how I felt or undo the damage. The decision had been made, and I had to live with it. The following day, to lift our spirits, Mom and I decided to take the kids to the fair. The noise, the lights, and the laughter felt like a much-needed break from everything. For once, we allowed ourselves to just enjoy the moment, to forget about the past, if only for a few hours. That evening, as we sat back with a bottle of wine, I finally mentioned the letter to my mom. Something came in the mail for me last night. I began. Oh, what was it? She asked, her curiosity piqued. It was a letter from Willie, I replied, feeling the weight of the moment. What did it say? She pressed, expecting that I had read it. I don't know. I didn't open it, I confessed. You didn't open it? But why not? She asked, her tone a mix of concern and surprise. I just didn't want to deal with whatever he had to say, so I burned it, I explained, trying to sound more casual than I felt. You burned it, Natalie? What if it was something important, like divorce papers? She asked, her concern growing with every word. The envelope didn't look official at all. I'm pretty sure it wasn't that, I reassured her, though doubts lingered in the back of my mind. Well, if you're sure, what do you think was in it? She asked, her voice softer now. Maybe a weak apology, or maybe he wanted his stuff back, I speculated, trying to push aside any lingering curiosity about the contents. But how are you feeling about all of this now? She asked, shifting the focus back to me. Today was a good day. It's still tough, especially when the kids keep asking about their dad. What do I even tell them? I admitted, the weight of it all returning in a rush. It's slowly getting better, but only a little, I added, trying to stay hopeful. As long as it's improving, that's what matters, she said. And just so you know, I'm planning to cut ties with your sister. Everything I have will go to you and the kids, she stated firmly. Oh, Mom, that means a lot, but are you sure? I hesitated. Lori is still your daughter, I reminded her, realizing how serious this was. I know you and Lori had your differences, she said, her voice resolute. But what she did is unforgivable. I raised both of you better than this, and Lori didn't care. She's no longer my daughter in my eyes. Her words stung, and while I understood her position, I also knew how difficult it had been for her to make this decision. Lori was still her child, and to disown your own child, no matter the reason, was a heartbreaking choice. I felt a mix of gratitude and sadness, knowing the sacrifices my mother had made for me. The thought of ever disowning my own children was unfathomable, and it only made me appreciate my mother's support more deeply. She was willing to make this painful choice for my sake, and that filled me with both gratitude and sorrow. 5 days later, as I was adjusting to this new reality, A sudden knock on my door interrupted the quiet routine I had settled into. I wasn't expecting anyone, and with my mom at work, visitors were rare. Cautiously, I opened the door just a crack to see two men in black suits standing on my porch. "Can I help you?" I asked, peering out cautiously. "We're lawyers, and we have something for you," one of them replied, extending a note and a check toward me. I hesitated before accepting both. As I glanced at the check, my heart nearly stopped. It was made out to me for $920,000. "Is there some mistake?" I stammered, still reeling from the unexpected turn of events. "There's no mistake," they reassured me, urging me to read the note. The note began with the words, "Thank you for saving me." As I read on, I discovered it was from Amanda, my mother-in-law. She had tried to visit 5 days ago but found no one home. When she called Willie, he had implied that he couldn't access the house because I had changed the locks. Something felt off to Amanda, so she pressed him until he finally confessed everything. Appalled by her son's actions, Amanda decided to update her will, ensuring that her assets would be left to me and my children. She had been terminally ill, and sadly, she passed away just the day before. Her final wish was to ensure that her daughter-in-law and grandchildren would be well taken care of. Tears streamed down my face as I absorbed the contents of the note. Amanda's unexpected kindness and the profound loss of such a supportive figure overwhelmed me. It was a bittersweet moment, realizing the extent of her faith in me and the magnitude of her final gesture. Amanda was an exceptional woman, known for her integrity and fearless spirit. While this often put Willie on edge, to me, it was a source of immense comfort. She remained steadfast, offering her unwavering support until the very end. Not long after Amanda's passing, Willie reached out over the phone. I expected an attempt at reconciliation, but I chose to listen anyway. "What's this all about?" he demanded, wasting no time. "You need to be more specific," I countered, keeping my voice calm. "Why weren't you at the house when I asked? I sent you a letter instructing you to act normally during my mother's visit." "Oh, that was in the letter? I never read it," I admitted. "You burned it. You've ruined everything. Mom was supposed to help with the estate, but you've taken everything for yourself," he accused sharply. "That's quite hypocritical, Willie," I replied, my voice steady. "You left us, and now you only reach out because of money. Love isn't something you can manipulate." I acted in my best interest, and clearly, so did your mother by protecting us. Please don't contact me or the children again." I ended the call with finality, feeling a sense of closure after months of emotional turmoil. In the days that followed, I moved quickly to formalize our separation. The divorce proceedings were straightforward, and custody of our children was awarded to me without contest. Willie attempted to challenge Amanda's will, hoping to claim a portion of the inheritance, but her documents were airtight, leaving him with no claim. Despite his attempts, Willie and Lori continued to badger me, hoping I'd relent and share the inheritance, but I stood firm. The financial security the inheritance provided allowed me to secure my children's future with education funds and investments for our long-term stability. It also gave my mother the ability to retire comfortably, easing some of the burdens she had carried for so long. As for me, I returned to the workforce, balancing my career with the adjustments the kids needed to make in their new normal without their father. In time, I plan to share the full story with them, when they're mature enough to understand the weight of it all. Though the pain from the past still lingers, I'm optimistic about what lies ahead. The future holds promise, and I am confident that better days are on the horizon.